The leave button now is an icon of a man leaving.
I know. It's funny. All right. Welcome back to Thirst for Knowledge. I have lost count of episode this is, but that's okay.
Number 9.
9. Oof, look at us. All right, Ben, well, what are you drinking?
I am drinking absinthe.
Okay,
and it's not bad.
I have to ask you later if you see any little green fairies.
I will happily tell you if I do.
I am abstaining. Well, not abstaining, but I am not drinking absinthe. The anise flavor is one of the few flavors that I find so disagreeable that I just can't do it.
Interesting.
Yeah, I'm very much, I'll eat almost anything, but anise, fennel, licorice of any kind is a non-starter for me. And I experimented. I did to see if I could find a cocktail that would mask it enough. And no.
I think if you put enough sugar in it, it'll help sweeten it away. I put some sugar in this and it was okay. Then I put a little more sugar and it's much more, I don't want to say tolerable, but it's actually not horrible.
Well, there you go. Did you do the whole over the spoon sugar cube situation? Nice.
Yes.
Well, they make they make special, really kind of wide spoons. They're very decorative and they have the slots in there. You're supposed to like put the sugar cube on top and pour the absinthe through it.
Yes. I tried it with a spoon. I knew I needed something that was slotted. So I brought in the top of a martini shaker, which I put into the cup.
Very
and then
clever.
I put in my glass and then I put the sugar cube in there. And I read that there are 2 ways to do what absinthe drinkers call the ritual. As you have the sugar cube over an empty glass and you pour the absinthe through the sugar cube and then pour water through the sugar cube until it's all dissolved. Or the other way is you have the absinthe waiting in the glass. And then you filter the water through the sugar cube on top. If you go the first route, you're going to use a lot less water because the absinthe is doing some of the dissolving for you. Right. Whereas if you go the second route, you need to keep adding more and more water until it's all dissolved.
Interesting.
I went the latter route with absinthe waiting at the bottom and water. So that's probably why it doesn't taste that bad. I did a lot of water.
Diluted it.
Sugar. But I still got the very cool cloudy effect, which I pronounced wrong. How do I pronounce it?
Well, it's louche or the ouzo effect.
Ouzo effect.
Yeah, because that happens with ouzo and limoncello, a few other liqueurs. Technically, absinthe is classified as a brandy and not a liqueur, apparently.
Really? I did not read that.
Yeah, but I gotta say, absinthe is very ingrained in kind of culture, right?
Yes, it is.
I mentioned the little green fairy in the beginning.
The little green fairy.
I have an Oscar Wilde quote for you about absinthe. It says, A glass of absinthe is as poetical as anything in the world. What difference is there between a glass of absinthe and a sunset?
Aw. Okay.
Yeah, apparently he liked it.
I do like it very much. But now after several sips in now, I'm actually really enjoying it.
Good. There are people, a lot of people love that flavor, that anise flavor. But it's not for me. That's okay. It's all right.
It's okay.
Yeah. So do you want to enlighten us a little bit more about absinthe and its role in culture? Specifically French culture, I think.
Sure.
Parisian culture of a certain time.
Sure.
Yeah.
It's interesting. It was first made in Switzerland by a French doctor who was on the run from France. So it is a French drink, but made by a Frenchman using what he could find in Switzerland. One ingredient was a leafy plant called wormwood, otherwise known as Artemisia absinthium. So I guess where the name absinthe comes from. And he
but chicken or egg?
Yes.
Do they name the drink after the species, or they name the species after the drink?
Really?
I don't know.
Oh, well, we'll find out. Well, we're not going to find out because I don't know. But one day we'll find out. Anyway, the story goes in the late 1700s, this Dr. Pierre Ordinaire, which I don't know if that's a real name or not, he used herbs, anise, fennel, like you mentioned, and wormwood, which is the name absinthium, and he made an elixir. And he peddled it as ordinary tonic, and it's one of those fix-all medicines that people were peddling without any FDA type approval.
Well,
I got this awesome drink. It's going to fix all your ailments and make you feel strong as an ox and help you do this and that. So
I feel like we still have a bit of that lingering around.
Excuse me. Anyway, so he started selling it and it took off. And by the mid 1800s, it was embraced by French society, particularly in Paris, where it became very quickly associated with the bohemian artistic lifestyles, painters, writers, sculptors, intellectuals, poets, mostly because everyone believed it had very strong hallucinogenic effects.
Psychotropic. It may have. We'll get to that.
Go on.
I've always appreciated, so I've always been a big fan of Toulouse-Lautrec's work. I love his dance hall prints, and there is this mythos around Toulouse-Lautrec and Ernest Hemingway and sort of this bohemian artistic culture that was in Paris at that time. And I just have always thought it would be so fascinating to be in one of those salons, right? To be sitting there with all these artists and writers and painters and, with or without the absinthe. I don't think I'd like it even back then, but I do think it was just this really rich cultural time, not just in France. That was sort of the center, but there were writers like James Joyce and Lewis Carroll that would come and be part of that bohemian scene at the time, which was very factually captured in Moulin Rouge with Nicole Kidman. It was like a documentary.
I watched Moulin Rouge one time. There will not be a second. Speaking of famous intellectuals and artists, Van Gogh cut off his ear, and he was a very big absinthe drinker, supposedly. And it has long been rumored that he did cut off his ear while under the influence of a lot of absinthe.
Well, it's interesting because I found a little article about Van Gogh and absinthe, and rather than try to link it to the ear cutting situation, they actually linked it to his love of the color yellow. So many of Van Gogh's pieces include these really vibrant yellows, or just sort of a yellow undertone to the piece, to the painting. And they think that could have been because of absinthe overconsumption, because it can apparently cause xanthopsia. So xanthopsia sounds like a good Greek word. Then xanthopsia, it means yellow halo. And so this is a dominantly yellow bias to your vision due to the yellowing of the optical media in the eye.
No way.
However, this also could have happened because he was consuming digoxin at the time, which is a derivative of digitalis, which was used to treat various heart conditions. And this xanthopsia is also a known side effect of that too. But it's one article arguing that it was the absinthe. Too much absinthe, lots of yellow.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
I know. I thought that was very interesting. And, because I had to find a parasite connection somehow.
I was hoping that you would. I'm happy that you did.
So, Artemisia absinthium, the wormwood. So use the flowers and the leaves in the absinthe. Artemisia species have long been medicinal herbs. And the Absinthium species is native to North Africa and temperate regions of Eurasia. It's grown as an ornamental plant. It bears the name of Artemis, the Greek god of childbirth, because it was used for gynecological medicine way back when.
Okay.
It's an herbaceous perennial plant with fibrous roots. Its flowers are pale yellow, tubular, and clustered. And in 2015, a Chinese scientist, Yu Tu, received a Nobel Prize for harnessing the anti-malarial capabilities of artemisinin. So artemisinin is a very effective anti-malarial drug. And it's metabolites, so the drug breaks down in your body, and those metabolites use iron as a catalyst to form free radicals, which then alkylates, basically disrupts the malarial proteins and causes the death of the parasite. And this is huge, right? So this is actually also the second anti-malarial we've had on the podcast. The first was quinine. Yep. And this one is actually even more effective and came about at a point in history where traditional anti-malarials were starting to show a lot of resistance by the malaria parasite. And so artemisinin was really kind of a lifesaver. Because in 2022, there were an estimated 249 million malaria cases and 600,000 deaths from malaria. It's a big deal. We don't hear about it as much in the U.S. And of those 600,000 deaths, 80% of them were children under 5. Yeah. Wow. So
sad.
It is very sad. And the discovery of this particular, property of the artemisinin was really groundbreaking at the time, and was also highlights how traditional herbal medicine can be harnessed for modern pharmaceuticals, which happens quite a bit.
That's awesome. That's a nice positive sign for the absinthe. So
yeah, right. It's not all hallucinations
nice
and green fairies.
Not just hallucinations and green fairies. No. It's way more stuff than that.
But much like the quinine in a gin and tonic, you would have to drink a fair amount of absinthe to get the dosage in one anti-malarial pill of artemisinin.
I don't think anybody wants to drink that much absinthe.
No, well, I wouldn't recommend it for a variety of reasons. However, one of which hallucinations is not one of them.
No. I went to go buy some absinthe for our show, and called around, found 3 places that sold it. Turns out none of them did except for the third one. And I go to buy it, and I asked the cashier, I'm like, do you have any absinthe? Where is it? She told me where it was, and she says, that's going to make you hallucinate. Like, I really don't think it does. I think that's just a myth. And she goes, no, absinthe really does. I'm like, no. We're in a liquor store. I'm sure if I drink enough of anything here, I will hallucinate.
Yes.
But I think this is just going to taste like some weird, herbal medicine type of thing. And she said, no, it's going to do it. She was convinced. I'm pretty sure it's not. Hallucinations or absinthe madness was often attributed to, I'm going to pronounce this wrong, the compound thujone or thuone. I don't know how you pronounce it.
You don't either.
Which is found in wormwood. Everyone believes it was believed at the time that it had psychoactive properties, which led to fears of psychosis and hallucinations. But turns out no. A huge amount of thujone or thuone. I don't know how to pronounce it. It's Thujone. You try pronouncing it.
It's a really weird name for a chemical. Like, even for somebody who used to have to pronounce chemicals on a daily basis, like, it's a weird one.
It's a weird one.
Yeah.
You need an insane amount of that chemical to have hallucinogenic effects. Not nearly enough as which is present in almost any amount of absinthe, unless you're like drinking it by the gallon, at which point... So
I have the numbers.
You have another problem. Huh?
I have the numbers, right? So, because, this is my job on this podcast, to bring the numbers. So
I love the numbers.
So older absinthe, like absinthe around the time of, Toulouse-Lautrec, had about 260 parts per million of this thujone, which if you compare to today's absinthe, 8 to 9 parts per million. It cannot be higher than 10 per EU regulations. So I don't know about wild hallucinations, but there was a chance that the absinthe that was drunk back in the 1800s, late 1800s, would maybe not make you hallucinate, but would have different side effects. So additional to the hallucinations, absinthism, which was a thing, was characterized by gastrointestinal problems, acute auditory and visual hallucinations, epilepsy, brain damage, and increased risk of psychiatric illness and suicide. Okay. Because this thujone is a mix of a ketone, which is like acetone is a simple ketone, and a monoterpene. And terpenes are biosynthetic building blocks that are often found in plants and play key roles in plant biology. However, they can be fairly toxic. This particular one is a GABA receptor antagonist, and that means it's convulsant. So it is a structural isomer. Remember we talked about isomers last time? They are same chemical formula, slightly different structures, as camphor. And camphor is absolutely a convulsant. So if there was indeed, 20 times more of this compound in the absinthe that was being drunk back in the day, then you probably could get really sick from it. And not just like alcohol sick, like other type of sick.
Bad.
Yeah. So current absinthe, you're not going to experience any of that. I think that when the French doctor hiding out in Switzerland made it, right, it was the more the better, because this was what he thought was the medicinal, ingredient in the tonic. And then I think people slowly figured out that it was probably not good.
Absinthe was not available in the United States for a very long time, almost 100 years. It was banned in 1912, and it's one of the first alcohols that was banned in the lead up to prohibition, because it was the belief that absinthe had these incredibly strong hallucinogenic properties, and it was very dangerous, and it was almost toxic because of the Jones. I don't know how. I can't pronounce.
I couldn't even get Google to pronounce it for me. I mean, I tried.
I can't.
I'm
trying.
This is no need to phone a chemist.
Yeah, we need to phone a chemist. Anyway, it was people believe that absinthe was the beginning of what started off alcohol-related crime in the United States. Ooh. And so it was banned in 1912. It was finally lifted as recently as 2007, provided it was found to have less than 10 or less parts per million of Bujo, like you said.
Yeah.
If you go to Europe, there's more Thujone in the absinthe, but I don't really think that it makes much of a difference because it doesn't affect the color, the taste, the cloudiness when you put the water and sugar into it. Like just a small little something that doesn't really do anything.
Should we talk about the cloudiness?
Sure. Heck yeah.
So the ouzo effect.
The ouzo effect. I love it.
So ouzo is a Greek liquor, clear liquor, that when you add, and you always drink it with water added, cold water, and you get the cloudy. And it is often, but not always, anise flavored. So it's, so what is going on? It is a microemulsion formed by the competing interactions of an oil, alcohol, and water system. So you have essential oils from the plants that are used to flavor these liquors, and you have the alcohol and you have the water. So you have one phase called the dispersed phase that contains the oil and alcohol microdrops, and a second phase called the continuous phase that is the water dissolved in alcohol and the remaining fraction of essential oils that are hydrophilic and not hydrophobic. So the hydrophobic oils in the absinthe dissolve in the alcohol because they're not going to dissolve in the water. Right. And then the alcohol itself forms a solution with the water. So that is steady state absinthe in a bottle, right? You don't see any cloudiness. You don't see anything because the alcohol is dissolving these hydrophobic oils. When you add more water, you disrupt the whole system. So the hydrophobic substances precipitates from the solution and then forms an emulsion with the alcohol and water mixture. So basically they just come crashing out like, nope, we don't like this anymore. But what's interesting about this effect is that, one, the tiny droplets in the emulsion scatter the light and make the mixture look cloudy. And two, this is actually what's called a stable emulsion without a surfactant or anything like that. Like, it's not going to settle out. Like, you're not going to all of a sudden see a whole bunch of cloudy at the bottom and then it'll clear out on top, which is what precipitates usually do. They usually drop to the bottom. So it's really interesting from a sort of food science perspective. If you need something to be in a stable emulsion, then trying to get to this ouzo effect is one way to do it without adding additional things like a surfactant.
Awesome.
I know, right?
It is awesome. I was just happy when I made it. If someone's looking for a very easy science experiment to do at home that's actually fun to drink, do this.
And like we said, ouzo is another option that does it, as does limoncello, apparently, which I've never tried. But
I do like limoncello.
I do too.
I can't recall if I've had it or if it was cloudy when I had it. I do know that I've liked it.
Never added water to it, so that might be. So this is the issue. You got to add the water, and apparently you have to add cold water. There was a paper published in the American Chemical Society's Omega Journal in 2021 that looked at the effect of the temperature on the formation of this microemulsion. So they examined the turbidity of absinthe diluted with water at different temperatures. So the warmer water forms a less turbid solution, and you need more water to do it. Cold water dilutions form a more turbid louche, or cloudiness, with less water, and it corresponds to an increase in the number of droplets forming in the microemulsion. So temperature matters. Cold is best.
I just did cold just now because, I don't know, I got the feeling that a colder drink would be a more refreshing drink. But now I think there's another added benefit.
Well, you could run your own little science experiment. You get all different temperatures of water in little glasses of absinthe and have them and see what happens.
As I'm drinking my absinthe while we're talking, it's getting better and better and better, but I don't know that it's going to get so good that I want to line up several. And have cold and lukewarm and hot.
Yeah, I think hot would just be gross.
We'll just save that for sake. Well, cold and sake.
Yes, that is an upcoming episode as well. Sake.
It is. I don't know what that stuff's just magic. Moving along. What else can we say about absinthe? The deliciousness. I had a note of all the different horrible things that people were adding to absinthe in the early 1900s, that people were lacing it with copper sulfate or antimony to chloride for one reason alone, to enhance the green color of the absinthe. Absinthe, when you buy it, is naturally green due to the chlorophyll from the woodwood, or not woodwood, wormwood, sorry, woodwood, but it's not like fluorescent green. It's just green. It's kind of dullish but nice green. You might see people drinking absinthe in funny movies, and it's this bright, glowing green drink. It's not the case. But people at the early 1900s, they wanted to really make their absinthe brand stand out from the rest. So the brighter the green, the more people bought it, and the brighter the green, the more poison people were actually literally drinking.
I wonder if they used, so in the late 1800s, there was a paint color called Scheele's green, and I
love Scheele's green. Tell me more about Scheele's green. It's one of my favorite colors.
Okay. Yes, and also it was made with copper arsenite, or acidic copper arsenite, which is essentially arsenic. And let me tell you, people were obsessed. And when I say obsessed, it was in wallpaper, it was in fabric, it was in paint, it was in wax fruit, it was in toys, it was in everything, until people started to notice that everybody was getting sick from the arsenic in the color pigment. Gosh. And it fell out of favor, and then later was banned in the 1870s. But it is not, though, the only toxic paint. There were a number of toxic paint colors, some of which are still used today by artists very carefully. My brother confirmed lead white is still out there, chromium red, because they are very good pigments. You just have to be very careful when you're using them. But right. I wonder if I would not be surprised if some copper arsenite made it into some bottles of absinthe.
It's horrible.
Yeah, it was also called Paris green, so I feel like it just was all in the same place happening at the same time.
In Paris, we here in the States, we have, and other places around the world too, there's something called happy hour. Towards the end of the day, you go for happy hour for drinks. But in Paris, still to this day, some people call it the green hour, because it's 5 to 7 p.m. and that's the time to go out and have a drink, especially amongst, like we mentioned before, the creative circles, the little bohemian circles of people, of artists who want to create things, and they call it the green hour still. And some people still have absinthe at that time.
Yeah, so I found some old medical journals again, because,
of course.
Fun. This one from 1889 talks about the absinthe hour.
See?
And maybe it wasn't 1889. Let me make sure I have the right reference. 1868 in the American Journal of Dental Science, surprisingly. And so it says, if a visitor to Paris strolls along the boulevards from the Madeleine to the Bastille some summer's afternoon between 5 and 6 o'clock, which is commonly called the hour of absinthe, or probably l'heure de vert, the hour of green, he can hardly fail to remark hundreds of Parisians seated outside the various cafes or lounging at counters of the wine shops and imbibing this insidious stimulant. At particular cafes, the Café de Bade, for example, out of 50 idlers seated at little round tables, 45 will be found thus engaged. But it is not on the boulevard alone that absinthe is a special 5 o'clock beverage. In most of the wine shops in the Faubourg, in the Quartier Latin, and round about the École Militaire, you may see at the particular hour workmen, students, soldiers, clerks, charbonniers, chiffonniers, even mixing their customary draughts of emerald-tinted poison and watching the fantastic movements of the fluid as it sinks to the bottom of the glass, wherein it turns from green to an almost milky white.
Okay.
I love old medical journals, Ben. This is like my new passion. This is my new passion in life.
I love it. And I forbid you to not like it anymore because of you're not liking the flavor. It's
But I tried. Such a fresh thing. It is. Yes.
Sit and enjoy the color change on the boulevard. Oh my God, yes.
I mean, Ben, I have been married to a Greek man for 10 years and I still don't drink ouzo, so I don't really think there's much help for me for absinthe. Oh. His cousin very nicely gave me a bottle of Tsipro, which is another like grape liquor, distilled from grapes, without the anise in it because he knows I don't like the flavor.
That's nice.
It was nice. They distill it themselves, so it's
cooler.
More. There's a lot of sort of collective farming in Greece, sort of. So, for example, you can take your olives from your olive grove and take them to the village press to get them pressed. Like, you don't have to have an olive press on your site. And it's the same thing with things like Tsipro and Ouzo. You can get your own grapes and kind of come up with your own recipe. And there's a communal distillery then that will actually make the Tsipro for you.
Okay. That's awesome.
I know, right? As long as it's under a certain amount.
Okay, but still, everyone coming together.
Yeah.
And helping each other make all the cool, yummy things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, look, we came back with 5 gallons of olive oil packed in, like we got an extra suitcase just to bring it back, and I have no regrets.
All right. So it's true that people come home with lots of olive oil.
I mean, yeah. When your mother-in-law goes to some horeo and comes back with olive oil that somebody just pressed 2 days ago, of course you're bringing it back with you.
Yeah.
But tangent.
When my parents go, my father's Israeli, and my parents go back to Israel to visit and say hi to family and everything like that. When they come home, we don't ask them, how is the family? We don't ask them, how are things? It's like, where's the baked goods? Where's the babka? Where's the rugula? We want it. And they do. They bring home a suitcase, not the little carry-on suitcase. No. Full suitcase. You check underneath.
Yep.
Full of pastries.
Mm-hmm. You have to do what you have to do. I mean, it's just...
You gotta do what you gotta do.
Yeah.
Pastries are worth it. Olive oil, I agree.
All the time. All the time. I will sometimes make a pilgrimage to New York City to get certain pastries and bagels and things that are really only to be found there. At
Absolutely.
Absolutely. I'm going to schlep all the way uptown to Zabar's because it's essential. Like, you just can't, I'm not going to just get these anywhere.
Oh, gosh. Last time I went to New York, not the last time, but one time I went to New York, saw a friend of the family, and he took us to the 2nd Avenue Deli. And as with all things New York, there's a huge line for everything that's good. But then again, also with all things New York, there's one guy who's super pushy who will fight his way to the front of the line no matter how long. Thank God that was our friend of the family, and he got us everything they had on the menu and gave us suitcases worth of deli foods to bring home.
So good.
Worth it.
So worth it. All right. One final science fact for absinthe.
Bring it on. Let's get back to absinthe. That's what we're talking about.
Yes. So
it's a natural insect repellent.
It is a natural insect repellent. It is also potentially an antibiotic. So,
whoa!
Yes, if you take the same species, Artemisia absinthiae, and you use it with other antibiotics. So this study explored the synergistic antibacterial effects of plant derivative products from this plant. And so they found that it was very potent, and that it could even restore the efficacy of antibiotics against multi-drug resistant bacteria, such as methicillin-resistant Staphylococcus aureus, or MRSA, and multi-drug resistant E. coli. So it could be pairing the... So MRSA is a really insidious infection. So a lot of times people get these in like gyms or setting where people are like sweating it out, because a staph is a skin bacteria. So we all naturally have staph on our skin. It's just a question if it's good staph or not so good staph. There are more bacterial cells in your body than there are like human cells. Like back inside, outside, they do a lot of different things in terms of digestion. For your skin, it's barrier protection, actually, to make sure that like bad bacteria aren't just hanging out on your skin all the time, right? So methicillin is part of the penicillin family of antibiotics. And so methicillin-resistant Staph aureus is actually a really big problem. It's not easy to treat, and it can be really invasive into your body, like into your skin. Gross. And then anything that says multi-drug resistant in front of it is never a good thing. So multi-drug resistant E. coli is not something you want to come across, because chances are that you're going to have to take a very strong and potent antibiotic that are not fun to take. So,
imagine.
Yeah. So it would be helpful if there's something like the artemisinin that could improve the efficacy of what they call like mainline or frontline antibiotics.
Okay.
Yeah. See, it's good all around. Just keep drinking the absinthe.
I am. I'm debating finishing my absinthe.
All right. Any other absinthe facts?
Absinthe was banned in 1912 in the United States because it was also believed that it was the cause of the moral panic of the early 1900s. People were just becoming criminals and adulterers and whatever else you can think of because of the absinthe. But that's just a fun little side note. It doesn't do all those things.
No, it doesn't.
It does not.
No, not at all. Well, I think this has been a super interesting episode.
I think it has been too. This is a very interesting cultured. Very cultured one, very mythological one. I like it very much.
Yes.
And it's bright green, so it's a very colorful one.
Yeah, how could you not like it?
Favorite color, green.
Awesome. I have a green liquor to discuss in the next episode.
Green to men.
Yeah. No. Chartreuse. And we'll answer the other question. What came first, the liquor or the color? Turns out.
Have to tune in next time, folks.
Yes. All right. Well, thank you for listening. And again, we remind you to drink and science responsibly.
Please do. Later, gang.